Hello, everyone. Ron Trotto, TC Computer Consulting, and today we are covering backup for the small business. And, well, wow, it's a huge topic. It's a giant topic, and there's a lot of facets to it. So we're going to try to get through it pretty quickly today, but there's going to be a bit of a fire hose going on here. So let's start at the very top. So, what is backup? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not what we used to do. It's not flipping drives around. It's not exchanging tapes every day. It's not taking a tape home and hoping that someone remembers to flip it out. Backup has come a very long way from there. And if you mention backup and don't mention cloud in the same sentence, either you have a very specific strategic strategy for that, or you're probably doing it wrong, which is in most cases. The cloud's going to give you that buffer we had talked about before, so that if the bad guys compromise your internal systems, there's no way that they can then compromise your backup. So, very important to have that in place, and not all solutions are created equal. You have to really get down into the nitty gritty and technical pieces of your backup solution and make sure that it works the way that your plan states it will work. So, what do we back up? Well, there's a couple of things. One is data, and the other is systems. Now, systems can also include the data, but they're very different types of backup. The data backup is just really a snapshot of whatever data that is. It could be Office 365 email, Office 365 SharePoint, Office 365 OneDrive. It could be just your files themselves that you've either stored on your machine or they're on a server drive. It could be your line of business application data that's backed up to a database backup, which is then just, pulled off by you and put somewhere, hopefully in the cloud. And then there's system data. And the system data really is the configuration piece and the operating system itself behind all of your computers. Now, if you have an on-premise server, you have a server in-house, that's going to need a system backup almost always in a disaster recovery business continuity plan, because you really need that configuration. You need all your users, you need the permissions for those users, you need those permissions to apply to the data itself. So there is some difference. And unlike many moons ago, today data really lives all over the place. What's important in terms of keeping that data safe is having those policies and procedures in place that state, or even reinforced by administration and administrative rules in your network, that hey, when you save a file to your laptop, it's not protected. But if you save the file to the server drive that's on your laptop, it is protected. So it's very important to have those rules and policies and the training in place to reinforce all that. So if anything ever did happen, all your data could come back to you. The other thing you notice I mentioned was Office 365. There is no backup on Office 365 by default. Although Microsoft does some internal stuff and they do have things in a few places, unless you're in a contract with them that specifically states that they will be handling that portion of it, you're going to be very hard pressed to ever get a backup. Why is this important? Because Office 365 is actually one of the most targeted applications for hackers these days. There's a lot that they can do if they can get into your Office 365 account, especially if you're an administrator. One of those things is pretty nasty. They can ransom all of your email. That's right. They can install an application that will then go ahead and completely encrypt every single email that you have on the server. And then once you give them the magic key back, they run some special program and it all goes back to where it was before. Of course, after you pay them in some hefty amount of Bitcoin. So if you have that backed up, no problem. You call your provider, they'll reinitialize the restore of those, the overwrite, and you'll be back on your way in no time. But very important to know, and one of the very common misconstrues of what Office 365 does and doesn't. Another thing is your line of business app. If that's hosted in the cloud, make sure they have a written disaster recovery plan that you have a copy of. Make sure that they are doing their due diligence to make sure if they ever get compromised or hacked in some way, that you're not out of luck because they didn't do their due diligence on backup and their own system business continuity. So very important pieces there. And also very important to note, once you get just out of that, one server, if you have a second server in your environment, not only is the backup going to be important, but how those backups are done is going to be very important. If those server snapshots come back up, they're going to run, but if they're off in timing by more than just a little, it's going to cause a lot of grief in at the time that you have to restore, because there's additional procedures that are going to have to be done by the IT staff to get these things to mesh all together. And again, it comes back to that plan. We always talking about the cybersecurity plan, which also includes your data backup plan, and then your business continuity plan, because they're different plans, but they're very closely related. So I'm hoping that I didn't scare you away with all this data. We could talk for hours and hours about this. This is one of our major areas where a lot of our strategy goes into. So if you ever have questions, please do not hesitate to just reach out and throw them. You can throw them in the comments. You can always call us as well, and we'll see what we can do to help you out in that area, because it is kind of tough to navigate, even for us at times. So new technology is constantly coming out, making things better, but sometimes bringing us 2 steps back down the road as well. All right, so I hope this was helpful, and if it was, please like and share, and we'll see you tomorrow.